Good evening. The controversial Kent landlord, who's banned what he calls coloured people from renting his properties because he claims they leave a smell of curry, is now facing legal action from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. They have applied for an injunction against Fergus Wilson over his lettings policies.
Mr Wilson owns hundreds of properties. In a recent letter to his letting agents, he also told them to block single mums, anyone on benefits and plumbers. In an exclusive television interview with our reporter Charlie Rose, he remains defiant about his right to choose who lives in his properties.
He's the South East buy-to-let tycoon who caught controversy with his lettings policy. Fergus Wilson banned Indian and Pakistani tenants from renting his homes because he says they leave a smell of curry. Now the Equality and Human Rights Commission has stepped in, asking the court if it agrees that Mr Wilson's rules contain unlawful criteria.
Even Asian landlords have been saying to me, well, actually, you're right, it leaves a terrible smell. That's why we don't take them ourselves.
Mr Wilson has previously said he won't rent out his properties to single mums. He also says he won't let to benefits claimants, and he's banned what he calls battered wives. But he says anyone who falls into these categories can be accepted if they have a guarantor. You say you've received a lot of support about your policy. Doesn't mean to say that your policies are right, does it?
Well, you have to look what the man in the street thinks. What Lord Denning used to call the reasonable man who rode in a Clapham Common omnibus. What would he think? The reasonable man also say to me, this is not racist, it's common sense. And I think really at the end of the day, the Equalities Commission has not thought this out very well.
It's very surprising someone has those sort of views these days.
1,000 houses, why not give 10% to people who are desperately in need?
If you've got so much money, you can pick and choose, can't you? That's what people do.
The Commission, now that they've decided they do have a strong case against him, they will seek a judgment whereby an injunction will be brought. An injunction will be put in place so that Mr Wilson will be unable to advertise his properties or rent out his properties with such stipulations in place.
Up here, the two on the left-hand side, number 7 and number 9.
Since the 1990s, Judith and Fergus Wilson have built a property empire of more than 900 houses. Tonight he remains defiant, believing he's done nothing wrong.
Oh, well, Charlie Rose is in Maidstone now, where Mr Wilson rents many of his homes. And Charlie, is it right that Fergus Wilson intends to fight any legal action?
Yes, this afternoon Fergus Wilson told me that if it turns out that the court agrees with the Equality and Human Rights Commission, then he's prepared to fight it and take it to the Supreme Court if necessary. Now this afternoon Mr Wilson told me that he owns close to 1,000 residential properties here in Kent, including here in Maidstone. He insists he's not racist and says he even rents his homes to a variety of people, including Gurkhas. But tonight, critics say they hope these legal proceedings will urge Mr Wilson to rethink his outdated views.